Hey guys, it's been a while since I've uploaded a video, but I am back today to talk about the classic format since we have an event coming up in May, and it'll be the first classic event with ATP 6 legal. Just because we got a new set coming out, that doesn't mean that some of these older cards that I'm about to talk about today are not viable. In fact, I think these cards improved like a drastic amount with ATP 6 because we got a bunch of new supporting characters and some missions even for these decks. Um, so, without further ado, let's jump into it. So, today, the decks I wanted to really talk about are primarily tank decks, as well as an I Don't Believe in Destiny list that features a couple tanks. So, tanks as a tribe has always had this idea that they wanted to play with the scrap pile, and as the game gets a bigger card pool, playing with the scrap pile just gets more and more valuable. And as we get more playable tank characters, that just it amplifies these effects even more. So I don't believe in Destiny is a stratagem for Wave 1 Jetfire, whose flip to bot mode ability lets you return an armor or utility from the scrap pile onto him, which has synergy as you can see already with Hunker Down, where we already want to be putting those cards in the scrap to play them. But Jetfire and Hunker Down both allow you to cheat on certain upgrade requirements like Ghost Shield and the superior upgrades because they say play only on this, but both Hunker Down and Jetfire put it on there, so you ignore the play restrictions. Jetfire's stratagem also is really powerful because it says armors and utilities can't be scrapped from your Autobots by your opponent's cards. So you're protecting your really powerful upgrades. And you also get to move upgrades to another character from Jetfire at the end of your turn, so you get to reuse come into play effects. We also have Straxus Lives, the Dark Mount stratagem. Dark Mount's also just a criminally underplayed character. His stat line is pretty solid still for 10 stars. He does only have 13 health, but he has like 4 and 5 defense, so unless you're against like heavy Pierce, he's gonna be tanking hits. And he also just hits like a tank. And see, I would have said hit like a truck, but he's a tank. Anyway, back to what's important. So he flips to the alt mode. He gets to shoot someone for 2 by discarding a card from your hand, which in combination, as you'll see with some of the ATP 6 cards, that 2 can actually be either 3 or 4 damage, depending on the situation we're in. And getting that much direct damage just on a flip effect is ridiculous. So, let's get into the lists. So to start, we're going to have the I Don't Believe in Destiny list since it's the most different out of the 3 lists. So, one thing too, you're going to notice a lot of these lists have more than 40 cards because we want to be playing with the scrap pile. So, anyways, Iron Fist as a tank has basically impressed me very much. Not even just because he's a tank, that's like all upside. It's the when you upgrade a damaged character you control, you can draw a card and then you scrap a card from your hand unless you scrap an upgrade on your character. And that ability just lets you see so many more cards and gets you really cool play effects. Warpath is another new ATP 6 character. I've talked about him before, but his flip to alt mode lets you amplify the next direct damage you deal by 1, as long as it only hits a single target. And we already are playing 3 range characters, depending on their modes. So Sturdy Javelins are really good, Marksmanships are really good. Iron Fist has a bot mode trigger that deals direct damage. Warpath deals direct damage in his bot mode. So just these effects can stack up to get a lot of burn, even though we're not Sharpshooter and not like 100% leaning into the burn, we can use that. Where this deck really shines is you get to play 2 Champions Chassis, which normally you could only play if there's an Optimus on your team. But since both Hunker Down and the Jetfire, like I mentioned earlier, put, you can just tutor them from the graveyard, and you get a +1/+1 tough 1 armor that can't be scrapped by your opponent's cards because of Jetfire. They have to like catch off guard, Reflector Cell, or have a way to stop it from being scrapped in a different form of removal. We also, though, get to play Rapid Ascent two-pronged attack package. So two-pronged attack, because we have two tanks and a plane, means that we can choose to either have it be your opponent chooses someone to take 2 damage, or 3 if Warpath flipped to alt mode that turn. Or if we play it on a tank, they have to discard 2 cards. And Rapid Ascent with 3 range characters is very similar, they just have to discard a card. But because of Jetfire's move ability, we can play it on Jetfire or pick it up from the graveyard with Jetfire, they discard a card, and then move it to another one of our ranged characters, and then they have to discard another card. Same with like Armed Hovercraft. We can't pick it up from the graveyard, but we can play it on a Jetfire, deal damage to their board, move it over to another ranged character, deal another damage to their board. And we just get to maximize these effects and get so much value. The rest of the deck is pretty much a straightforward, just like good mid-range package, where you have the direct damage I mentioned earlier, you have battle pumps, you have ways to disrupt your opponent's game plan, ways to tutor your cards into the graveyard with confidence and follow-through, and then just good upgrade suite, your grenade launchers, your energon axes, sturdy javelins, tutorable armors, ghost shield can be cheated from the graveyard as well, superior jetpack gets cheated from the graveyard, and then enhanced power cells, just a +3 health utility that your opponent doesn't really get to remove very easily. So that's just the core kind of this I don't believe in Destiny list. Jetfire is a very flexible character, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's multiple ways to build him in this format that people just haven't really been exploring. I mean, the strat also gives him like +1 to all of his stats, so you're looking at either 6, 16, 2, or with bold 1, or 5, 16, 2. Like, his stat line is just really good. So I think Jetfire probably deserves more play in the format. People just don't play him very often, and I think that that's probably incorrect. Moving on, we have Straxa Sharpshooter. So I had mentioned actually in one of my previous videos that Warpath might be what gets Straxus Lives banned in Classic. We have to see. It hasn't been... People haven't played it, so we haven't really seen it, because the set just came out. But getting access to a bunch of free direct damage, yes, there's counterplay, gets to be really scary. Especially because both Hunker Down and Rollout flip our Warpath and Darkmount at the same time, meaning that we get a Bolt of Lightning on that flip, because we'll stack the Warpath trigger to resolve first to increase our next direct damage, and then discard the card to Darkmount. If you play Hunker Down with this team, it's really cool, because you can flip all your tanks to alt mode and then play an upgrade on all of them, and as long as they're all damaged, that armor that you tutored from the graveyard lets you draw 3 cards and scrap 3 cards. Granted, it's all one at a time, so it's draw, discard, draw, discard, draw, discard, or draw, scrap, draw, scrap, draw, scrap, depending on if you want to scrap upgrades. But you just get a lot of free value that way. And then because we're playing so much burn, we get a Bolt of Lightning in here even, because we have an extra star. So that can just be a deal 4, deal 5 as well. We have Sharpshooter, which is also I like in this deck because Darkmount's melee in bot mode, and that's his 5 defense against range side, and since Sharpshooter gives all of our ranged characters stealth while untapped, you can force them into the Darkmount with his massive defense stat, even if that's not who they want to hit. As well as, just the obvious one of if you get a burn kill, you get to amplify all your single target burn by 1. This list gets to play the Hunker Downs, the armor package to tutor 4, gets to play solid weapons in Grenade Launcher, you have an Energon Axe, you get to play 2 Harpoon Guns because Iron Fist of Wrecker and Darkmount's a leader. Warpath just gets, it's a +1 bold 1 pierce 1 weapon, that's still not bad at all. And then yeah, you have your burn package of Marksmanship, the 1 Bolt of Lightning. 2-pronged attack isn't a burn spell in this deck, it's just a discard 2, but with 3 Rapid Ascent, 3 2-prong, you should be able to set up the combo to just rip your opponent's hand apart. You can even do something where you like Rapid Ascent them, trigger Iron Fist, draw a card, scrap the Rapid Ascent, and then play Hunker Down to put the Rapid Ascents back on. Camion Crash, just one of the best burn spells ever printed. Valiant Effort. We have a leader in Darkmount, and since we have 3 range characters, at worst it's a zap. And then Downfall, we do only have 1 leader, so a lot of times this is just a black pip, but we do want black pips for our composite armors. And Downfall, just a really good card. Dark Mounted is also a blue, so you get that upside. Uh, this deck kind of just amplifies why the Dark Mount Warpath synergy is so good. It's basically built around that whole interaction. Uh, One thing I haven't mentioned is that Straxus Lives actually heals Dark Mount whenever he has an armor plate on him as well. So your Guardian Shells are a repair too, especially with Iron Fist. So what you can do is play a Guardian Shell on your Dark Mount, trigger Iron Fist's ability first before the Dark Mount ability because you want to make sure you're still damaged. You'll draw a card. You can then scrap the Guardian Shell and repair two because you had an armor plate on him and the Guardian Shell scrapped from the Iron Fist ability. So you just get like this massive like heal synergy going on as well. To keep on the Straxus Lives train, we're actually going to go on to Leader Tanks next. Leader Tanks is a very vague deck name, I'll say, because Leader Tanks can be built in a variety of ways, and I think both deck lists look different depending on how you want to play it. They can be both aggro or control-y. This one's leaning more towards the blue elements with still really good orange pips, but they had to all have a purpose to be in here. Leader Tanks just basically is either three leaders, and with at least two of them being tanks, that being Wrecker Impactor, the 9-star, Double Dealer, or Dark Mount, and then Ratchet, or this shell is Dark Mount, who's 10 stars with his stratagem, Double Dealer, who's 10 stars naturally, so that's 20, and then we have 5 stars left for it. I wanted another ranged character, and I went with Huffer. You could also do Night Racer. I just like Huffer more because the Sturdy gives you some utility. And he has 4 base attack, so it's not uncommon for Huffer to outdamage a Night Racer throughout the course of a game. This deck is only 42 cards. It's not the full 44 that the last two lists were, because it's not 100% reliant on the scrap. Not to say that the other Straxus list is, but you have 3 tanks, so you do want to make sure that you're not reshuffling very fast. This one only has the 2. But you get to play your Hunker Down rollouts to make sure you're flipping to your alt mode. To draw the card with Double Dealer to have to pitch to Dark Mount, or just draw that card. You have your Leap into Battles, just a good blue combat pump, probably still the best pump in the game. That isn't named Reckless Charge, but even Reckless has downside. Marksmanship, because we do have 3 range characters. Valiant Effort, because we have 2 leaders, and it's a zap again. Follow through in here, we don't have a mission, but it is still a way to fill our yard and draw a card, because it's look at the top 3 and you pick the best card out of them to go to your hand, and then the rest go to the scrap, so that lets us put armors in our scrap pile for future Hunker Downs and find any card we need. Then we have a secret action package because of Double Dealer's bounty. You have Sabotaged Armaments, Despite Any Difficulty, Downfall Protocols. With 2 leaders, Downfall's way better in this list because it's a blue on 2 of 3 of our characters instead of just the 1. Despite's really good because we're a very mixed pip. And then Sab Arms is just, you sometimes just need it. Weapons, we have 3 Energon Axe. Since we're a blue deck, it's pretty straightforward on that one. 2 Soldier's Blaster, because we actually have a character of each faction, so it's going to be a +3 attack weapon on somebody. Sturdy Javelin, we have 3 range characters and a melee in Dark Mount's bot mode, so he can have it as a primary laser if you don't want to throw it yet. Armor-wise, we have 3 composites because of 2 tanks, 3 Guardian Shells because it's one of the best blue armors ever printed. Sparring Gear to get that tough 2. I played Sparring Gear actually in my recent Titan 1 list, and I was very impressed by that card again. And then Bashing Shield. Sometimes you just need to bash a force field, and you can pick it up from the grave with Hunker Down. Utility-wise, we get 3 Opportunism since Double Dealer is a Merc. We get a Reflector Cell, and we get an Absorption Core. Just really straightforward utility is like you block direct damage since Dark Mount has the lower health threshold. Opportunism gets you the extra health and focus and an attack. Like, it's such an absurd card. And Reflector Cell can be in the armor slot. And it's actually cool because it's a way to get defense that isn't taking up an armor. So since you put it in the utility slot, if you want, you can then have an armor go on him. And when you do that, you just get a really big tanky dude. So yeah, that's what I have today to talk about. We're just basically three tank lists, one of which using the Jetfire, and then two of them with Straxus. Those were just ATP 1 cards from the first set that haven't quite shown that they're able to compete in the other formats, but in Classic, they're probably powerhouses that people just haven't explored. Either they forgot they existed or have wanted to play all the new stuff. And sometimes the classic stuff's just there, especially when it's getting new tools in each set. Let me know what you guys think. If there's any classic decks you wanna play, if any tank decks strike your mind, like strike your fancy, let me know. All right, and until next time, thanks.